Line is a conservative space for news, as objectively expressed and transparency in their comments. The Bottom Line is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. Indiana Radio, Latina 5.0, from Latinos to Latinos.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for tuning into our show today. Today was our third day of the first week of our time in Chicago, and you're listening to Deb Gordils. And you could be listening on any one of 3 radio stations on 1470 AM, 1500 AM, or 1590 AM. And so we welcome all of you to our show today. And I have a real special guest that I want to bring on board. And before I do, I just want to say I was listening to President Obama's speech today while I was working out in the gym this morning. And he was addressing the European leaders in Brussels. And he talked about Ukraine and Crimea and what he thinks should be happening over a period of time to try to resolve that. He sort of chuckled at Russia being a world power and considered them at most a regional power. However, our people in Europe are a little bit more fearful about that, so I don't think that we should ever underestimate Russia, and I think it's because we did that we find ourselves in this situation that we're in right now. So I hope you enjoyed our show yesterday. If you didn't catch our show on Monday or Tuesday, Raul Ventura Ortiz has been kind enough to be uploading it on my Facebook page. So if we are not friends on Facebook, you can go to my Facebook page, Deb Leticia Gordils, and I have 2 Facebook pages, so go to the one where you see me smiling at you. And go there and click, I'll add you on as a friend, and you could download the radio shows to hear them. And I think they're also being offered on YouTube. You can go to YouTube, Raul Ventura Ortiz, RadioLatina5.com, and get the shows off of there. So let's begin today's show. I have a guest, William Guillermo Luna. William, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Hey, welcome to my show. How are you doing today?
Okay, fine, ready to go.
Very good. You know, I was absolutely fascinated with you yesterday when I met you. And I hadn't met you before, but we really didn't get a lot of time to talk. We were at a veterans post because you are a veteran, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you are also a professor at Indiana University, and you are the curator historian for the Museum of Mexican Culture and History, which is located at 3610 West 26th Street. So if you haven't had a chance to visit there, or you would like to meet William Guillermo Luna, which I'm sure you will after we get done with these discussions and this talk today on the radio, you can look for him there. And we'll give out a number, too, where you can reach William Guillermo Luna a little later. So tell me, Bill, as everybody calls you, Bill, you did share with me that you were involved in Republican activities out in D.C., correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, basically, I'm from East Chicago, Indiana. And East Chicago, Indiana is a stronghold Democratic area. But when I went to work for the federal government, I got hired in 1975 by the U.S. Civil Service Commission. And I was hired as an equal employment opportunity representative. And at that time, I had the opportunity to research the programs that the government had put out there for particularly Latinos, Hispanics, whatever. And I found out that most of the programs, almost entirely all the programs, were for Latinos, were put out by the Republican Party. So I immediately made a switch and became a Republican back then. I think we're doing a disservice to our community because we really don't know, most people don't know what the Republicans have done for the Latino Hispanic community. And I think it's about time that we start getting this information out to the people so they can have a better choice when they make their political statement or selection. And that's what I'm here to do, is kind of educate people in terms of what Republicans have done for Latinos.
Yeah, thank you so much. And that is so powerful, and that is so important. And historically, I mean, we're about ready to make history here in Illinois. We have a Latina running with Bruce Rauner right now, Evelyn. And Evelyn's acceptance speech at the Rauner election night party was amazing because the first thing she did was start talking in Spanish. And she thanked everybody in Spanish, and she let everybody know that the time has come for a person of Hispanic descent to be elected in the state to the second highest position. And so, I'm on board, as are so many other people, for a big move in the state of Illinois to enforce both term limits and to clean up the city, not just Chicago, but Springfield, and bring in some really some prosperity to this state, which is so broken down right now. Tell me, when you decided to become a Republican back in the 70s, what were some of the Republican administration people that you worked with, and what was some of that activity?
Well, first of all, I had to kind of inform myself. And being a researcher and a historian, I had to look into the records to find out the programs and who had established these programs. And we have to go back to President Richard Nixon. President Nixon, I found out at that, he was born in Whittier, California. Okay. I think candidates have to have an early awareness of the populations that they're going to serve. Clinton was from Arkansas, Jimmy Carter was from Georgia. So they have very few Latinos there at all. So he was born in Whittier, California, and he was raised amongst Mexicans and Asians and so forth. Very few blacks. He didn't know blacks at all, really. So therefore, when he went to the White House, he started doing things for the Hispanic community. And one thing that he did, well, to start off with, in 1970, he started the program that I worked under. At that time, it was called the 10-Point Program, to hire more Latinos, Hispanics into the federal government. It was called a 10-Point Program, and then it was changed to the Spanish-speaking program, and finally, it was changed to the Hispanic Employment Program. And it was administered by, at that time, early on, by the U.S. Civil Service Commission, which later transformed into the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. So I became the Regional Hispanic Employment Program Manager for the U.S. Office of Personnel Management to get more Latinos basically into the federal government. And that was Richard Nixon that did that. Because he saw the dire need to employ more Hispanics, Latinos into the federal government. So he established this program in 1970. He also established had passed the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, establishing the Federal Equal Opportunity Employment Recruitment Program, which requires federal agencies to conduct affirmative recruitment of minorities and women. That was Richard Nixon. A lot of people don't know that he was at the forefront of civil rights in the federal government. Also, Nixon, being from California, he appointed Ramona Banuelos as Treasurer of the United States. She was from California, a lady who had a tortilla factory who became very, very prosperous. He also appointed Hilario Sandoval out of Laredo as the administrator for the Small Business Administration. All right. He also established the Cabinet Committee on Opportunities for Spanish-Speaking People to see that things were happening for the Latino community. And Martin Castillo became the first director. It's interesting that these facts are not known, and the I fault the Republican Party to some degree for not putting this information out. You can't just tell people vote for us unless you show that there's something that they have done for this particular segment of the population.
Yeah, I think that so many people agree with you. Messaging has been handled poorly by the Republican Party, and it really is the responsibility of Republican Latinos like yourself to get that message out and correct it and fill the void that has been happening for nearly 50 years.
Yeah, well, I think being a historian and a researcher, I think that I have the advantage, and sometimes I get carried away because I have all this information, and I'm always trying to put it out there, and because most people really don't look at history very much. This country doesn't have a lot of curiosity. I was a school teacher also, and last night I had my class at Indiana University, and the students, they're just barely, I saw some of the papers that they submitted for their midterm, and I told them last night, I said, I taught fourth grade in Chicago, and some of these papers don't even match the fourth grade students. The indictments. What we're going through, misspelled words, no punctuation, no grammar, sloppy work. I said, this is a
Maybe you need to show them where the spell check button is on the computer.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. And you know, if I asked them for a one-page paper, they would triple space it, so it wound up being one paragraph in a whole page.
Well, I don't think we're going to get any more better results if we implement Common Core in the state of Illinois, so hopefully that won't happen. But, you know, we have a couple minutes here before I have to go to a commercial break. At Nixon's contributions, these are amazing statistics that you have on Nixon's contributions. And I think, you know, I personally am not going to discount Nixon and what he's done for civil rights reform for Latinos ever again. And we'll be mentioning this quite often as we move forward towards the elections. Can you share anything else with us about Nixon? Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
No, I didn't. Like I said, I was a Democrat most of that time. Okay, I living in East Chicago, Indiana. But the other thing, Nixon made a statement. You know, he's the one that opened the gates to China. He was very global in a sense, and he said one time, and I can't find information, but I know he said it because I ran across it years ago. He said that every child in this country should speak English, Spanish, and French because of our borders. And he said that way back then when bilingual education was not that popular, you know. Mm-hmm. And he supported bilingual education, right? He's a strong supporter of bilingual education before people even thought about it.
Yeah, and I think the spirit of bilingual education is fabulous. However, when it's put into practice, unfortunately, the children are the one that lose, and these greedy programs, and I've seen it happen in Chicago here, completely manipulate and take all of the money through administrative costs, and nothing gets trickled down, and the kids are the ones who suffer. So because of that, you know, there's no doubt that we have a lot of problems with bilingual education here in Chicago, and that's for a whole nother show since we're talking about Latinos and the Republican Party. We're going to go to some commercials here in just a little bit, and we'll be back with more from William Guillermo Luna. So, Bill, if you could just sit tight, we'll be back with after these commercials to hear more of the fascinating data that you have to share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Bottom Line with the Gordils
is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper. Best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois. With over 20,000 copies in each edition, El Sueño Americano is available in all versions. El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and Sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of news. The best analysis in regional, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information in championnews.net. The conservative voice for Illinois news and commentary on education, pensions, and politics. The Bottom Line is a conservative space for news, as objectively expressed in transparency in their comments. The Bottom Line is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. Indiana Radio, Latina 5.0, from Latinos to Latinos.
Hello, welcome back. This is Deb Gordils, and we're on the radio here with Bill Luna, the curator, historian for the Museum of Mexican Culture and History, located at 3610 West 26th Street. And so if somebody wants to donate to the museum or get to meet you, because I'm telling you, we're going to skyrocket your popularity here. This is fascinating information that you're sharing with us about the history of the Republican Party's relationship with moving Latino issues forward, and beginning as early as 1970 with Richard Nixon. This is amazing. The Civil Service Reform Act and the Spanish-speaking program and this 10-point program for Latinos and his appointments. One of a woman that you said owned a tortilla company, Ramona. Mabuelos, and then you had another gentleman too that he had appointed. Yeah, so please talk to me about after the Nixon administration. Did Republicans continue to support Latino issues, and if so, in what way?
Yeah, well, let me just finish up with Nixon in the sense that the Voting Rights Act of 1965 by President Lyndon Johnson, and the only states that were covered by that act at that time was Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and Louisiana. In other words, Johnson, being from Texas, didn't even include his state in that first act of the Voting Rights Act. It wasn't until Nixon came into office that he extended the Civil Rights Act to cover states like California and New Mexico and Arizona, some of the southwestern states, that Johnson did not do it. You would think Johnson would do it, but at that time, the black community under Martin Luther King and Reverend Abernathy and Jesse Jackson were very powerful, so they had Johnson in a gridlock. So it was only the states with a heavy black population, and because of that act, 1 million blacks registered. Okay, so it wasn't until Nixon got in office that Latinos were hired, Hispanics were hired, because Johnson was, like I said, entrapped by the black civil rights leaders. So that was Nixon, and I admire what he was able to do under really sometimes against his own party, because some of them are very conservative, and I have to say that one person that I admire, that I started a Advent Post for him, and he also, and we had a school named Uno Charter School on 47th and Kildare, is Dr. Hector Garcia, who started the American GI Forum. As a matter of fact, today is a very special day. Besides being my son Tom's birthday, it is the birthday of the American GI Forum that was started March 26, 1948 by Dr. Hector Garcia when the Mexicans returned from the war. One of the most decorated groups from the war, and they came home and things had not changed. There was still that discrimination against Mexicans, and so Dr. Garcia started the American GI Forum. But one thing Dr. Garcia always said, that he always had to work with both parties, and he always worked with the Democrats and the Republicans. Therefore, he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Reagan and a savings bond by Vice President Al Gore back then. So he worked with both parties, and that was Dr. Hector Garcia, who was way in the forefront of civil rights before Martin Luther King, before Cesar Chavez, before anybody. It was Dr. Hector Garcia. I know when Bill Richardson ran for president, somebody made a statement that he was the first Hispanic to run for president, which was not true. The first person to run for president was Ben Fernandez. Ben Fernandez was born in Kansas, sitting in a railroad car, a railroad boxcar, and he was fondly nicknamed Boxcar Ben. He was one of 7 brothers and sisters whose parents were Mexican immigrant farm workers. The entire family worked as migrant farm workers in Michigan and Indiana. He enlisted in the Army and Air Force and in World War II and served in the military for 3 years. He went to California with only $20 in his pocket. He enrolled at the University of Redlands in California. He got a bachelor's art degree in economics, and then he went on to get an MBA from the New York City Graduate School of Business. Ben decided to run for president back in 1978. He ran for president. He received a Republican. He received 68,000 votes nationally, enough to win 3 delegates at the Republican nominating committee. He also spoke at the 1980 Republican Convention in Detroit. Fernandez lost the nomination to Ronald Reagan, but campaigned on Reagan's behalf during the general election and was appointed to the presidential transition team upon Reagan's victory. In 1984, he attempted a second run for president. He was unsuccessful in that year. But anyway, he is the first one to run president, and just the fact that he was able to get 68,000 votes nationally back in 1978 as a Republican speaks highly of the people that saw the merit of Ben Fernandez and his talent and his background. He had a master's degree in economics and a PhD. He became a millionaire. And in 2000, he served on the McCain Presidential Finance Committee, and that was his last political involvement before his death. So he died in April in 2000.
Wow.
People should remember Ben Fernandez.
Well, you know what, and we will continue to talk about Ben Fernandez. Here's what I see. I see Ben Fernandez running as a Republican because the Republican Party has always been the party where Latinos can run, are not shut down by a bunch of legislation like they have here in Illinois that's set up to kick people off the ballot and only let Latinos that the Democratic Party choose to run.
Right. Well, here's the thing. And I'm switching a little bit because, like I said, I'm a person that's very independent. All right. Back in the election when Obama was running the first time, the most qualified candidate was Bill Richardson. All right. He was born in New Mexico, was governor of New Mexico. He was the most qualified of all the candidates. He was governor of New Mexico. He was a congressman for about 3 terms. He was Secretary of Energy under Bill Clinton and ambassador to the United Nations. None of the candidates, Hillary, Edwards, Obama, had nearly close to that background. He only got 5% of the vote. So in the Democratic Party, where the most qualified person only gets 5% of the vote because he's Latino, that tells you where they're at.
Yes, exactly. But it tells us where they're at repeatedly. You got Mike Madigan right now, 41 years, 88% of his district is Latinos. And you're trying to tell me that these Latinos are voting for Madigan over and over and over and over again? Really, what has Madigan done for the Latino community down there that wins him that kind of loyalty and support? When I think of the Republican Party, I think of the opportunity for Latinos to get to the highest leadership positions possible. Like Ben Fernandez to be able to run. Okay, he didn't run, and one of the greatest presidents that this country has had did. Okay, it might have just been the lineup for him that time. But, you know, look at Ted Cruz and what he's accomplished against a long-standing Republican incumbent, Dewhurst, in the state of Texas. Hell, he had to leave Texas to get funds to help him run his campaign against such a powerful Republican, and he won and is now one of a shining star across America. This half Cuban, half Irish Latino that is a U.S. senator is creating quite the stir in Washington D.C. Then on the we have the New Mexico governor right now, Susana Martinez,
right,
who was from Illinois. She went to Buffalo Grove High School here in Illinois. She is now the governor, Latina, Republican governor in New Mexico. And you have Brian Sandoval of Nevada, who is the Republican governor there. And we have Marco Rubio, who sits in the U.S. Senate seat out in Florida. If anybody thinks for 1 second that the Republican Party has not produced the avenue possible for the most Latino leaders, I mean, they obviously aren't paying attention, because that walkway, that avenue that's open to reach the highest levels of leadership is offered in the Republican Party. And I can tell you right now, you can't take that walk or make that walk in the Democratic Party in America. You never could. And you can't now, and I don't know that you ever will.
Well, here's the other angle on this thing, is that we need to get people to vote, the ones that are registered to vote. We need them to get to the polls to vote and give them a purpose for voting. See, I know in my community, over in a little village in South Lawndale, the people are not voting. I worked at the polls. This last election for governor and for commissioners and so forth, only 40 people voted. Only in my precinct, 40. And, we have 16,000 registered voters. We need to get the message out with the Republican Party, and mostly Democrat. We need to get the message out, because right now, in the Mexican community, in their mindset, they think they've been told for years and years, the Democratic Party is the party of the poor, and the Republicans are the party of the rich. This has set into their mind forever, and it's very difficult to extract that kind of thinking unless you give them information on what the Republican Party has done for Latinos. And that message has not gone out there. I've been saying that for years. Nobody takes up the banner for that. They just think people are going to cross over or whatever just because they tell them to join another party or the Democratic Party is bad. That's not enough. That is really not enough.
You're right, Bill. And, we're coming here now to our second commercial break. These commercials, we have to do them to keep the shows going. So we've been listening to Bill Luna. And, Bill, when we come back, hopefully we can talk about more Republican influence on Latino issues and Latinos here in this country through the Republican Party when we come back after these commercials.
Okay.
We'll be right back after these following commercials. You've been listening to Deb Gordils. My guest today is Bill Luna, the curator and historian for the Museum of Mexican Culture and History. Just fascinating stuff, and we're going to hear a lot more. He's a professor at Indiana University. The museum is located in Pilsen at 3610 West 26th Street. You can find Ben there and reach him there. We'll give out a number for him shortly. You stay tuned. Come back after these commercials. Thank you.
The Bottom Line with the Gordils
is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper. Best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois. With over 20,000 copies in each edition, El Sueño Americano is available in all versions. El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of news. The best analysis in regional, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information in championnews.net, the conservative voice for Illinois news and commentary on education, pensions, and politics. The Bottom Line is a conservative space for news, as objectively expressed in transparency in their comments. The Bottom Line is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. Indiana Radio, Latina 5.0, from Latinos to Latinos.
Hello and welcome back. This is Deb Gordils, and you've been listening to our political talk show here in Chicago. You're heard on WCGO 1590 AM throughout the city. You're also listening to us at WCFJ 1470 AM throughout the city and down on the southwest. So welcome to our listeners in Hammond, Indiana, southeast Chicago, Lansing, LaGrange. Thank you all for tuning in on the southwest side. Throughout the city and up here on the north side in Wrigleyville and up in Niles. So this show is also aired from 8 to 9 p.m. on 1500 a.m. Radio Latina 5. So if you're listening to us from 8 to 9 p.m. Through Radio Latina 5, thank you so much for tuning in to the show. So we are heard from 5 to 6 p.m. in the city and from 8 to 9 p.m. in Lake County. And just welcome to all our listeners. We're talking today with Bill Luna, who, as we said, is a historian for the Museum of Mexican Culture and History, located in Little Pilsen. And Bill, can you quickly give us a phone number? We've had you on for the last two segments, and it'd be great to get a number where people can reach you and call you. Maybe they would like you to come and speak out to their group. Maybe they'd like a tour of the museum, or to get politically engaged in your efforts.
Okay. My number is 773-551-4750.
Can you give us that number one more time?
773-551-4750.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So there you have the contact information you have. And if you forget it, of course, you can always call us here at our political talk show in Chicago at 1773-472-8683. If you have any questions or any comments or anything you'd like to discuss, call us on that number, and we'll be happy to put it on the radio. So let's continue with our discussion and our guest here, Bill Luna, the Republican Party and Latinos. After the Nixon administration, it's amazing what Nixon, you've shared with us that Nixon had offered Latinos in terms of the Spanish-speaking program, the 10-point program. These all established in 1970 and really being part of the forefront in that 1965 Voting Rights Act, including, he started to include the Latino states that had a lot of Latinos living in them, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona. Tell us what happened after Nixon with the Republican Party and Latinos and its leadership.
Yeah, a lot of this information, I'm a reader. I had a bookstore in Pilsen for many years, and I think we need to go back to reading. I know people say they can read on the computer and all that. I don't believe it. But anyway, there's a book called Nixon's Civil Rights, Politics, Principle, and Policy by Dean J. Kotlowski. And this tells you about Nixon's civil rights. And on the picture, he's got a picture with Wilkins, the director of the NAACP. So I think people need to read. I think we're not reading enough. But anyway, let's switch over to President Reagan. President Reagan was born in Illinois, of course, in Tampico, Illinois, and he was raised in Dixon, Illinois. He went to California. First of all, he went to World War II. And then he went to California. He became governor of California. that's where he had a lot of Latinos, mostly Mexican Americans, that he hired in his cabinet. So he was very attuned to the Mexican/Latino community at large, and he had a lot of counselors that kind of informed him about our needs and really our concerns. Reagan was a person that really passed the first successful immigration reform. All right, because I was a teacher in the program myself over in Pilsen, and I think 6 million people became citizens because of his Reform Act, Immigration Reform Act. Obama's not going to pass anything. He's just full of promises. He's a preacher without a collar. I think he promised us a lot and delivered very little. He's really rounded up more Mexicans and deported to Mexico more than any president in history of the United States. All right, I think this person is the most unqualified. Whether locally, he didn't even run a hot dog stand. So this is what we're faced with: incompetency. And I think Reagan was the person that broke a lot of barriers to get Latinos, especially Mexicans, into the government, into different fields. Reagan, one thing that he did, a friend of mine named Roy Benavides, he was a Green Beret in Vietnam. Reagan awarded him the Congressional Medal of Honor. And he gave awarded Garcia, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. That was President Reagan. He was very close to Latinos, Hispanics, Mexicans, and I think his legacy will be seen for years to come. But again, we need to be more cognizant of what the Republicans have done for Latinos, and that's the information we have to put out there. It's not going to change people overnight, but I think if it starts sinking in, people might make a better choice or have options. Right now, they don't have options, especially in this city. I know a lot of closet Republicans. They hate to come out because this city is so democratic entrenched, and they're afraid of losing their jobs or their status or whatever.
Let's talk about that for a second, because some people think they don't want to come out as Democrats because they're afraid of some boogeyman that doesn't exist. But you and I know that those fears are really warranted on some really hard truths. And I think that listeners need to know that the hard truths are, when we say the city is democratically entrenched, we mean that the only way you can control the people is to have them suffer some dire consequences if they don't fall in line. And businesses in Chicago really suffer heavily if they don't fall in Democratic line. People can lose their business license. They can lose their businesses. They can lose, and I know business owners who had to hire attorneys and fight 9 to 10 building violations that were all bogus, just because they were not falling in line and supporting the Democratic Party in its candidate choices. So, a company that has to work in Chicago will tell you privately, we will be gone. We will disappear if we don't fall in line. So businesses are almost afraid to become politically connected in anything that's not Democrat.
Democrat, right. Well, look at our alderman. He's been in office 23 years.
Who is your alderman? Who is your alderman?
That's, I think, one of the vanguards for the Republican Party to push for term limits.
Yeah, but 23 years of who? Who is your alderman? Yeah.
And that's what we need to push for, because we need to get this entrenched people out of office who don't do anything, who don't have to do anything. Our alderman doesn't have to do anything. There's only 4,000 votes, the people that vote in the ward, and he knows that, and he doesn't do anything.
Is this Ricardo Munoz?
Ricardo Munoz, he just follows the line under Chuy Garcia, the commissioner, Cook County commissioner, who was the former alderman of that ward, and that's his stooge. And so, that's the people that really are holding us back.
But these are Latinos. Why are these Latinos selling out the Latino people?
You know what? I don't accept persons just for Latino. I know people that are non-Latinos that do more for us than they do.
Well, we know Reagan and Nixon are two of them.
That's what I'm saying. And others, well, so I don't take that. You have to show me, all right? I don't just take it that you're Latino. You have to show me. Right?
You want results. I like that because I like results too. So let's get back to Ronald Reagan. So we know that he honored 2 war heroes, and we know that he also really gave out a concrete immigration reform plan. After Reagan, what is the continual effect that we see of the Republican Party on Latinos?
The Republican Party has fallen into some kind of lapse, and I think the Republican, like for example, Mitt Romney. You know, I was raised a Mormon, right, just like Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney's father was born in Mexico. A lot of people don't know that. That should have been a bang card right out there.
Yes, I agree.
His father was a missionary in Mexico. His father could not run for president when he was governor of Michigan and chairman of General Motors. He could have run, but he was born in Mexico. Mitt Romney, I don't think there was a good public relations campaign. People start focusing on different issues, on him, you know, when he was governor of Massachusetts.
Well, I think that a lot of these Republican power players who managed to convince any of our Republican candidates not to play up their Latino roles, I think that they lose, because I agree with you. I think Mitt Romney's family ties to Mexico and his father being born there, that should have been like #1, because there's no way in hell that any Republican Party is going to win the White House in 2016 without the Latino vote.
Right.
And they're not going to win the governor's mansion.
He had his arm around Abraham Lincoln, a statue of Lincoln. I said, how many people know that Lincoln was a Republican? You know, just simple little tidbits here and there. I said the Republican Party has to do more research. They have to get off their butt or whatever and start doing something. If they want to personally attract the Latino community, they have to give them information, and this is what we've done for you.
That's right. You can't ignore the Latino vote in America anymore. I don't care what state you're in and what race you're running.
We have to show what we've done, and it's all historical.
Yeah.
Because of lately, there isn't much that has been done, to be honest with you. Okay? In Arizona, with Brewer, she said it's a party back 10 years. But people need to know.
But see, again, we go back to messaging. We go back to messaging. Well, we go back to messaging, and it's so important to have the right message. And so you got to figure out who is messaging for you, and you don't want to make that become a detriment, but instead a positive. You know, here we are now. It's almost time to go back to commercials. Bill, I'm really grateful that you've taken the time to be on my show. We're going to come back and we're going to wrap this up after this commercial break. Again, I am talking with Bill Luna, the curator historian for the Museum of Mexican Culture and History. We're going back and forth on the contributions of the Republican Party to Latinos, and I'm just really grateful because he's a professor at Indiana University, and so at least he's getting the message out. He has a lot to say, and you know, I had lunch with him yesterday, and I know that it is amazing contribution to have this man be a part of any program that you're having, and we'll give you the phone number once again of where you can reach him when we come back from these commercials. Thank you.
The Bottom Line with the Gordils
is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper. Best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois. With over 20,000 copies in each edition, El Sueño Americano is available in all versions. El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of news. The best analysis in regional, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information in championnews.net. The conservative voice for Illinois news and commentary on education, pensions, and politics. The Bottom Line is a conservative space for news, as objectively expressed in transparency in their comments. The Bottom Line is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. Indiana Radio, Latina 5.0, from Latinos to Latinos.
Hello and welcome back. Hello and welcome back. This is Deb Gordils, and you've been listening to my show today. We've been talking about Republicans and Latinos, and the reason that this is so important is because there's huge contributions and a huge relationship that's made on the part of Republican leadership with Latinos, and we need the Latino vote to understand how important it is and the power that they have to change election results. And especially here in Illinois, we're about ready to make a decision between Pat Quinn and Bruce Rauner, and I'm appealing, of course, to all my listeners. I'm going to ask you to, put everything aside, and we got to vote for Rauner, and we got to make a different, established leadership in the state of Illinois, and that includes House and Senate races. I'll talk a little bit tomorrow more about, of course, I'm not an Obama fan. I'm not a Jan Schakowsky fan. Couldn't believe what she was saying on the radio, on television today, of course, with MSNBC, which is a leftist, liberal-leaning media outlet. But nothing that would interest us other than we should just sort of have these discussions on why we need Latino voters to vote their values and to look at the contributions and see that they are more in line with Republican values, and they can obtain more and create more leaders through the Republican Party. So if you want to support the already elected Latino Republicans, and that includes John Cabello of the 66th District over in Rockford, who is the first Latino elected Republican Latino elected to the House. I mean, he is Madigan's #1 target, and we have to protect him and make sure that Madigan and the Democratic machine don't take out our brand new, wonderful Latino leader that we have out in Rockford right now. And we need other Latinos to get elected, and hopefully we will. I'll go over that. We are presently working with Jack Roser to slate numerous Latinos in Chicago. Jack Roser is one of the greatest conservative icons in Illinois. He has been a big contributor of Latino activities for the past 5 years. And he works nationally and locally with all Republican candidates to create what's best for Illinois. Bill, I know that I have you on the phone here, and I know that we were talking about just the great contributions of Nixon, and we started on Reagan. And so I'm so excited that you're on the show today, and this is not going to be the last time, Bill, that I'll be inviting you on the show. Can you please share with me and wrap up some more of Reagan's contributions to the Latinos?
Right. Well, Reagan appointed the first Hispanic cabinet member, and then Bush later reappointed him. His name was Dr. Lauro Cavazos, from the famous Cavazos family from Kingsville, Texas. His brother, Richard Cavazos, was the first 4-star general in the Army from a minority group. He was a hero in Korea and Vietnam, General Cavazos, who I had the pleasure of meeting several years ago, and I gave a saber in his name with our Cinco de Mayo banquet for 14 years. We're having a 22nd annual Cinco de Mayo banquet on Sunday, May the 4th. But anyway, the Cavazos family, his father served in World War I. His brother, Lauro Cavazos, who was appointed to the Secretary of Education under Reagan and Bush, served in World War II. His brother, Bobby Cavazos, was a running back for the Chicago Cardinals and an officer in the Korean War, an Army officer in the Korean War, and a cowboy. That's the kind of family that we should know. Getting back to Janet Brewer, I think the Republicans missed the beat when they should have said that it's not anti-Latino. It's to make the Obama administration look bad, because when Obama controlled the House and the Senate, he could have pushed immigration reform. But he put it back on the back burner to push his health care reform bamboozle.
Obama could care less about Latinos.
Well, I know that. That's why he's not going to pass any immigration reform, any Dream Act. He's a lame duck president. He really doesn't care anymore. Just recently, he awarded Congressional Medal of Honor to some Latinos. I think this is his desperate try to capture the Latino vote by doing that. And I've been pushing for those people to be recognized for years and years. I'm a military historian. I went to the Pentagon in '82 to write a book called Hispanics in America's Defense. We have the most distinguished military record of any group. And I think the Republican Party has always honored Latinos. Like I said, Reagan awarded Goy Benavides the Congressional Medal of Honor, and Dr. Garcia the Presidential Medal of Freedom. So we have to bring these things out. I think information is power, and if we don't do that, then it's our fault. We can't just say vote for us without showing what we've done for that particular segment of the population. population.
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, we'll be really looking forward to a book signing event with you on the title of this book and your experience. And I'm glad that you mentioned the Cinco de Mayo event that you hold at the at the Museum of Mexican Culture and History. For those of you who want to get involved, and I know that we are, we'd like you to seriously consider sponsoring a table of 10 at this great event. The phone number to call Bill at to get a sponsorship, $300 will get you a table of 10. It's going to be a great Cinco de Mayo event. It's going to be held on Sunday, May 4th. So if you have events already for Monday, don't worry about it. This one is on Sunday. 771-551-4750 is the phone number for you to reach Bill and for you to get involved in a Cinco de Mayo event being held on Sunday, May 4th. Let's get back to it's already halfway through our program, our last segment. Let's talk a little bit about the Bush administration, Republican President Bush, and the Latino community. What can you share with us there, Bill?
I think Bush, he's always been close to the Mexican community, being the governor of Texas, and he's had very good relations with Mexico. He was very well received by them. I think he received like 40-something% of the Latino vote, which was outstanding. I think that Bush opened the door again for many Latinos, and not only Latinos. We appointed I guess they was named on him as Attorney General. Of course, the Democrats set out to sabotage him, and they did a good job. Not only for Latinos, I mean, he appointed Condoleezza Rice, Secretary of State, and Colin Powell, Joint Chief of Staff. He broke a lot of barriers, Bush. He's not recognized for that. And I think Bush, overall, has set the tone. And I think probably Bush, one of his people in his family is probably going to run, Jeb Bush, or one of those is going to run for president in the future. He's being half Mexican.
Yeah, he's got his nephew, George P. Bush. His nephew speaks fluent Spanish, he was recently here in Chicago for the Illinois Republican National Hispanic Assembly Organization. And I think we're going to see a lot more of him. And you're right. I think down in the future, he will probably be very involved in political positions and even run for the presidency. Of course, George P. Bush, the Latino nephew, has a lot of competitions as the Republican Party continues to elect Latinos for U.S. Senate seats as senators and for governors of states across the country. This is just an exciting time. Things are not going to change. I think that the Republican Party has been in the shadows for Latinos, but as Latino leaders continue to emerge and Republican contributions and the relationship and the ties with Latinos historically continue to emerge, we're going to see a whole different face on the Republican Party here. And, I'm personally, as a Latina, I'm very excited about what the future holds for us.
And our values are more tied to the Republican Party than we are for Democrats. We're very family-oriented. We're very conservative.
Yes.
We have all the values to be Republicans, not Democrats.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about those values and the importance of Latinos to vote their values. We put out a Spanish conservative newspaper at Sueño Americano, 40,000 copies a month. 22,000 are delivered door to door in Latino communities only all over Chicagoland and the outlying suburbs. It is very important to get the message out and to get the information out so people have the facts. And Bill, your brain is amazing. It has so many valuable facts important to Latinos and to the Republican Party. I think we're going to hear more about you, Bill Luna, in the weeks and months to come, leading up to the governor's race here in Illinois. I think you'll be a big, important part of that. And I also believe that you'll be a very big, important part as a representative here in Illinois on this Republican database of information you have between the relationship of Latinos and the Republican Party. And that might be the name of your next book. But you're to be...
I worked at the polls Tuesday, and I was the only Republican judge there.
Well, I know that we have a lot of ballot groups in Illinois working very hard to change that so that we have more Latinos as Republican election judges coming up. And actually, if you're interested in becoming an election judge, you can call me at 773-472-8683 or 773-472-VOTE, and I will be more than happy to move your information to the persons who are handling the Republican election judges in the numerous precincts and wards throughout the city of Chicago and in the suburbs. So just a lot of activity going on, Bill, and it's just been an absolute pleasure to re-meet you again. You know, I met you once before, but we didn't have the opportunity to share what we've shared. And I'm happy that you've been on the radio show sharing that. This show, for our listening audience, if you're not able to catch the show or you want someone to hear this show, they can tune in on Radio Latina 5 from 8 to 9 p.m., where the show is going to be rebroadcasted there. Meanwhile, we will be back tomorrow from 5 to 6, where we will be talking more about the issues of the day, the Republican Party, how that affects Latinos. We'll also be talking about Obamacare, the need to repeal Obamacare right now. And Jan Schakowsky, a big to-do out in Washington, D.C., who's in a congressional race here in Chicago in the Uptown community, and how we really need to replace her. And we'll talk more about that a little bit on the shows later this week. Again, in closing, Bill Luna, thank you so much for being a part of the show. Do you have a closing comment and statement for your listeners right now?
No, I think we need to just think about, the past, because the past illuminates the future.
Yes.
And I think we have to do that because historically there's a lot of things that have happened, and a lot of people just don't know. So we have to inform people and up to date.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And we thank all our sponsors. If you'd like to be a sponsor on this radio show and you like what you're hearing, you can contact me, Deb Gordils, at gmail.com. You can also contact me if you're interested in becoming an election judge, and I'll forward your information to the necessary people. Again, our guest has been William Guillermo Luna, known as Bill Luna. He is the curator historian for the Museum of Mexican Culture and History. The museum is located at 3610 West 26th Street. He's a professor at Indiana University. They have a great upcoming event on May 4th for the Cinco de Mayo celebration. I know we're going to get a table. We hope others will get a table too. It's $300 for a seat of 10. You can contact Bill at 773-551-4750. Thank you, Bill, for being my guest on the show.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. And you've been listening to Deb Gordils, and thank you so much. I'm honored and blessed that you have taken the time to listen to my show, and I hope that you'll be back tomorrow from 5 to 6 right here to hear what I have to say. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
The Bottom Line with Deb Gordils
is sponsored by El Sueño Americano newspaper. Best newspaper in analysis in the state of Illinois. With over 20,000 copies in each edition, El Sueño Americano is available in all versions. El Sueño Americano Lake County, El Sueño Americano Pilsen, El Sueño Americano Southeast, El Sueño Americano Aurora, and sooner in many more regions. El Sueño Americano, the other side of news. The best analysis in regional, state, and national politics. El Sueño Americano is your alternative information in championnews.net. The conservative voice for Illinois news and commentary on education, pensions, and politics. The Bottom Line is a conservative space for news, as objectively expressed in transparency in their comments. The Bottom Line is transmitted from Monday to Friday from 8 to 9 p.m. Indiana Radio, Latina 5.0, from Latinos to Latinos.